Okay, so in this section, we are going to learn about the linear equation, how to solve linear equation, functions, zeros of the function, and application problems. So these are the objective: linear equation, solving equations, solve applied problem using linear models, and find the zeros. So equation means whenever you see equality sign between two sides, for example, let's say you have uh, one side which is x plus 1 and other side is equal to 15. So you can see the one side has, the left side has x plus 1 and then right side has 15. The meaning of this is there is a variable x. If you add 1 to that variable, that becomes 15. So they are equal. Whenever you see equality sign like this, that's called equation. Solving this type of equation means finding the value of x. So think about numbers. If you add 1 to that number, that gives you 15. So that is 14, because if you subtract 1 from both sides, x supposed to be 14, because if you add 1 to 14, that is your 15. So that's the equation. Linear equation means the variable we're using in the equation has to be the power 1. For example, in this form, here b and m are constant. For example, 2x plus 6 equals 0. M has some value, b has some value. The only unknown thing supposed to be this x. This is called variable. This equation is linear because x has a power 1. So linear means the variable, unknown variable, supposed to has power 1. Okay, that's the linear equation. So in this case, keep in mind, m cannot be equal to 0, because if m is 0, then there is no meaning of this equation. Now, two equations are called equivalent if their solution are same. If you look at this example here, this one, this equation is equivalent to this equation. The reason for that is, if you put x equal to 1 in this equation, then that will give you the true statement. So equations that have the same solution set are the equivalent equation. So for example, you can say that 2x equals 6 and then x equals 3, they are equivalent, because after simplification of this equation here, if you divide both sides by 2, you are going to end up with the same solution. So that's called equivalent solution. So how do we solve linear equation? We have to know some properties or some rule. The first one is addition principle, second one is multiplication principle, and then addition and subtraction, that's the same thing. Multiplication and division are same thing. The addition principle means if you have an equation like a equal b, if a and b are equal, then if you add something on the left side and if you add the very same thing on the right side, after addition you are going to end up with the same equation, meaning a plus c has to be equal to the b plus c. That's the addition rule. Same is true if you multiply both sides by some number, both sides by the same number. Okay, so we can solve application problem using the linear models, and for that most of the time we need to solve linear equation. That's why we're talking about linear equation. So how do we solve linear equation or the application problem? 5 steps for solving problem solving. So first of all, you have to understand the problem very well. That's only possible if you familiarize yourself with the problem situation. And how can you do that? There are different ways to do it, but some of the tips are like, you can make a drawing, you can assign a variable, you can write a list, and you can also find further information. You can also make a table or you can also estimate a given situation. So that's how you can try to understand the problem. And you can always translate you know a, a real life problem into mathematical language using mathematical notation, symbol like equations, variable. And you have to use mathematical manipulation like addition rule, multiplication rule while solving the equation. Okay, so first you have to understand the problem, you have to change the problem into mathematical problem, and then you have to use mathematical properties to solve that problem, and eventually after finding the solution you have to check your solution by going back to the real situation, and then finally you have to state your answer in clear language. So these are the some problem solving tips. Okay, so here is one of the application problem we can use in our quite frequently we use this situation. The distance d traveled by an object moving at rate r in time t is given by this equation. This is the equation. It's a relation between distance is equal to rate times time. So sometime if you have to solve distant problem with the velocity or speed, you can use this formula. Sometime it might be the simple interest formula where I is equal to P times R times T, where I means simple interest, P means principal, R means rate in percentage, and T means time. So these are some relation or some formula which we can use to solve application problem. So one last thing in this section is zeros of linear function. Let's assume that you have a function f of x which is a linear function. Zero of this function means the value of x which makes this function zero. For example, let's say f of x equal to x plus 1. Then think about the value of x which makes this function zero. So what makes this function zero can be found by making this function zero and solving for x. So if I subtract 1 both sides, I'm going to get 2x equal -1, and if I divide both sides by 2, I get x equal half. So x equal half makes this function zero. That's why that's called zero of this function. So these are some information from this section, and now I'm going to do some examples from your homework problem. So let's go to the homework problem. Let's see question number 1. Solve the following equation. The equation is 5x plus 10 equal 35. How can you solve it? You can use a different principle here. So the problem is as you can see, 5x plus 10 equal 35. So there is a 10 here. So first of all, you have to isolate this x on the one side. So you have to bring everything, all the constant on the other side. In this equation, you can just subtract 10 from both sides. By doing that, the one side, the left side, you will see 5x, and then on the right side, 35 minus 10 is 25. And now to isolate x, you can just divide both sides by 5, and that gives you x equal 5. So divide 25 by 5, that's the 5. So after finding this solution, you can always check your solution by going back to the original problem. 5 times the value for the x, which is 5 plus 10, has to be 35. Is that true? 5 times 5 is 25, and that gives you 35, and that is right. So x equal 5 is the solution. The solution is 5. Let's go to next problem. In the 2009-2010 school year, in country A, there were 98,000 foreign students from country B. This number is 23% more than the number of students from country C. How many foreign students were from country C? So this is the application problem. As you can see, we don't know how many students were from country C. So what we can do is we can introduce the variable, introduce variable. Let's say x is the total number of students from the country C. So now we know if x is the total number of students which we would like to find exactly, then go back to the problem and let's see here, 23% more than from country C is 98,000. So from country C it's x plus 23% of x. So remember 23% meaning 0.23. So x plus 23% of itself is 98,000. That is the information we have given here. The student from country B is 98,000, which is 23% more than country C. So you have to multiply x by 23%. So now to solve for x, here you can just add 1 plus 0.23x it's actually 1.23x, and that is 98,000. And to find the value of x, you can just divide 1.3 both side by 1.23. If you add here, you see in front of x there is nothing, that means there is a 1. That's why 1x plus 0.23x is 1.23. So now just divide 98,000 by 1.23. I'm going to just type a calculator here, and then I'm going to use 98,000 divided by 1.23, and that gives me 79,674.79. But this is the number of students, so we have to round the number to the nearest thousands as needed. So we have to nearest thousand, 79,674 nearest thousand. So what is the nearest thousands? So it's a 79,674. So it's supposed to be 80,000 because that is near to the 80,000. 80,000. Okay, this is 80,000 because the answer is 79,000, and then this number 674 is, if it's greater than 500 or more, goes to the next thousand. That's why it's 80,000. Okay, let's do another problem. State whether the function is a linear function or not. This is the function, here is the variable x, and then power of x is 1. That means it's a linear function. Okay, now this is the application problem. The perimeter of a rectangular field is 320 yards. The length is 40 yards, longer than width. Find the dimension. So there is a rectangular field here. There is a rectangular field, and we would like to find out the dimension. Means we would like to find out this length and then this length. That's called the dimension. The perimeter means if you add all four sides, that's 320 yards. The length is 40 yards, longer than width. For example, let's say width is x, then length supposed to be x plus 40, because length is 40 more than width. So if this side is x, then this side is also x. If this side is x plus 40, then this side is also x plus 40. Perimeter means you add all four sides. So x plus 40 plus x plus x plus 40. So that gives us 320 AR. This is the one side, this is another side, this is this side, and this is the fourth side. Now our job is to solve this equation. X plus x plus x plus x is 4x. 40 plus 40 is 80 equal 320. Now solve for x. Subtract both sides 80 and then that gives us 4x equal 240, and then if we divide both sides by 4, that gives us 60. So x is 60, then another side is x plus 40, which is 60 plus 40, which is 100. So the dimension would be 40, the smaller one is 40 yard, and then 60 yard, sorry, my mistake, x is 60, the smaller one is 60, and then the bigger one is 100. So it's a 60 yard, and then bigger one, the larger one is 100 yard. Okay, so that's the question from this section, and that's all for this section.